Okay, enemy CV snipe. Basically, when and how would you snipe an enemy CV? So realistically, if you are trying to go after an enemy carrier, there is one thing which is going to absolutely deter you, which is going to be the enemy carrier's fighter consumable. The enemy carrier is going to have a fighter consumable. It's going to have 4 of them. That whenever it is spotted, this consumable is going to go ahead, automatically lift off, and start to circle the carrier for 10 minutes. So every time you strike, you've got these 4 planes, or depending on what tier it is, it's going to be a different number, that will kill any remaining planes that you have. So if you come in with 9 planes, you attack with 3, that leaves you with 6. 4 against 6 is only going to leave you with 2, and AA has probably killed those 2 anyway. So you don't have a second strike, which means realistically you're coming all the way over to strike once, and then all the way back to strike once, and then all the way back to strike once, and then all the way back to strike once. And I try to enumerate, or talk about just how much effort it's going to take to actually get the CV kill, because that's literally what it's going to be. When going after an enemy CV, that if you look at the map, you're going to make that a little bit smaller. We'll do that. If you are looking at the enemy CV who's over here and y'all have spawned, you've got literally something like 20 to 40 kilometer flight times to get to this guy. So if it's going to take you 4 to 6 flights at 1.5 minutes each, this is very easily 6 to 9 minutes of time, and it can be more than that if the enemy CV is able to block you or reduce the ability for you to interact with it. So the real question comes, if you have 3 sections of the game, you have the early game, the mid game, and the late game, what does the CV snipe give you? When and how to snipe the enemy CV. So when, if you spend 6 to 9 minutes, or we'll just be generous and say 7 to 12. So we'll be generous. The enemy CV makes you work for it. You spend 7 to 12 minutes in the early game. You're already well into the mid game, and the enemy CV has been making plays while you've been spending time going for the CV snipe. That the enemy is probably in a much stronger position than you are, because all of your resources have been on this, while all of their resources have been against your team, setting up their team to win and be in stronger positions. So really, this is ending up toward a gamble. Does this help you in the late game? But the question is there even a late game at all if the mid game has already been decided by the time that the CV goes down? That's really where the real question comes in. So how would you snipe a CV? Through many interactions. When would you snipe an enemy CV? When you have support. So if the enemy CV is in this situation and you have long-range battleship, long-range battleship, long-range battleship, long-range battleship, and you fly your little planes over here, and this guy's taking shots, and this dude's taking shots, and suddenly, the 50,000 health on this guy, he just loses 20 of it. Oh, he just lost another 10. Well, if it takes you 5 strikes to take the 50,000 health CV, and 30,000 just went away, then it only takes you 2 strikes. This is much more doable. Instead of this being a 6 to 10 minute kind of thing, it ends up being like a 2 to 3 minute kind of thing. So absolutely, go for it. It's going to take such a small amount of time because your team rendered you assistance in expediting the kill. It's always a judgment call if it's something that you should do, because you could absolutely end up having a front line that you'd have to fly through. You're going to lose a lot of planes on the way over to the enemy CV, and sometimes it's just not something that's viable, especially if they're able to kind of tuck themselves into a corner and maybe drop fighters that are going to block the way in from there while they've got friendly AA that's blocking to the south. There's not always a perfect time to do it. It's not to say that it's a bad idea, but you really have to weigh the pros and cons. Is this worth the time? Is it worth the resources? Sometimes that answer is going to be yes. Sometimes the answer is going to be no. It's up to you to really figure out what that answer is.